see the little nuances of that season, why this core was broken up, why Jerry Krause is pegged as the villain of the series. Instead, it's like in January, Scottie Pippen returned, and the Bulls had the best record in the Eastern Conference. But here's Michael Jordan talking about the 1987 dunk contest. Like, get it together. It is so disorganized. And I've been looking forward to this for a long time. We wouldn't be breaking it down on the podcast if it weren't so relevant right now. But it just seems all over the place. And I'm glad Flo agrees with me. That's why next week I'm doing the show with her, and you and your dress shirt can go hang out with Simba, okay?
I think that we're going to see more of it, too, to be honest with you, because I think there is going to be a Kukoc. There's going to be an episode that focuses on Kukoc. I wouldn't be shocked if they focus on some of the other players a little bit. I wouldn't even be shocked if they have a Jerry Krause, like a full Jerry Krause type episode.
See,
like
I think it's
I'm
done.
curious.
I think it's done. I'm kind of hoping they feature the four main players. Yes, but not to that extent. Like maybe they'll do like Kukoc and Kerr. Maybe they'll do like Luke Longley. Maybe they'll do Jerry Krause. Like, Bill Wennington, who I think is still the color analyst there for WGN in Chicago. So that's pretty cool. Just seeing him. You could tell he was a future broadcaster just watching him, on that documentary. But I don't know. It just feels weird to me. And I hope it proves me wrong. I hope that they actually go into like game by game, footage on the plane in the locker room. Because they already covered the media thing, like Scotty's contract. If Phil's not back, Michael's not back. Like they're getting into that, but that's whole stuff that's out there.
Right.
I want the juice. Okay. I really just want to see what else is in store. I wish it wasn't spread out over 5 weeks, but at least this coming Sunday, we'll have parts 5 and 6. We'll be back this time next week, breaking that all down for you. But I had to get that off my chest.
Well, I want to, first of all, I want to apologize on your behalf to the great color commentary analyst of WGN, Stacey King, who is one of the best in the business. He's the Tommy Heinsohn of Chicago, and he's delightful. So, sorry, Bill, and sorry, Stacey, but I agree with you.
Wait a second. No. Okay, my first job out of college, I worked for ABC Sports Radio. I used to cut play-by-play highlights. Okay, and I know for a fact Bill Wennington was the color guy. I'll battle you.
Okay, I can tell you that Stacey King is the guy. I'm looking right now.
Me too.
Maybe it's a different. Radio. Okay.
I was talking about radio.
Okay, you're right.
But I might have gotten the station wrong. I think it was ESPN 1000.
You know what? I take it all back. I apologize. The Bulls color for the radio, which includes WCKG, WLS, and WMVP, is Bill Wennington. You're absolutely right. Although for TV, it is the great Stacey King. So just for clarity there. But that said, I agree with you. I'm looking forward to it. It has felt long, but it's nice. It kind of makes you want it a little bit more. But speaking of things that we wanted and that we really got to kind of finally enjoy, the NFL draft was here, Jason, and it felt a little bit normal. It also felt a little bit weird, but I loved the telecast. I'm curious, before we get into the draft itself, I loved Roger Goodell switching outfits on the first day. I loved that there may have been someone going to take a dump in Mike Vrabel's house during the draft. I loved the weirdness of it. Cliff Kingsbury apparently lives in like the nicest house in Arizona. What did you think of this virtual format? Did you like it? Did you like the presentation? What did you think?
I feel like I've been bashing ESPN throughout this podcast, but again, there's nothing else to do. They did a great job with the virtual draft. I thought that everything went smooth. Goodell was really funny. I wish he wasn't botching these players' names. Like everyone's sitting at home during a quarantine. They should at least get the phonetics guide out and teach them how to pronounce names of the top 32 players. That was a bit off. He seemed like he didn't want to be there on Friday doing the second and third rounds. And then when the other guy took over on Saturday, he could not have been happier to be there. So I thought ESPN did a great job overall. My only qualm is, did they have to mention every single tragic thing these prospects endured in their lifetime? Like, I mean, God forbid the player got drafted and he had a healthy, loving family with no tragedy. He got no attention. Like, I get it. It's moving. And for all these people that lost parents at a young age and players that have persevered through some really hard times and are now living their dream, Focus on that. Don't harp on a player's mom who passed away when he was 4. Like, you don't want to watch that
Or
stuff. You
just the
mention it, but
football.
don't. I'm trying to think of the word to use. Like, they just played it out so much. And look, maybe I'm
Yeah.
wrong. Maybe I'm insensitive. Maybe a lot of these players did endure these tragic things, and it just happens that a lot of them are in the same draft class. I'm not knocking any of the players or their families. I'm just knocking how ESPN was harping on it. Like, if a player
Yeah.
got drafted and was on interviewed, it's like, so I heard that you had an indoor player, family passing away when you were 10. Tell us about that. Like,
There was
it's
just
not
no
the time. It's
football
not,
either.
again, it's not the platform. Again, it's not the platform. But I'll tell you what made me happy when a player got drafted and then they went right into the highlights because it made me feel like football was on.
I mean, so I watched the first round intently, and the Dolphins had 3 picks, and even for the Dolphins picks, there was almost no discussion of the football. There was videos of Tua at his house. There was an interview. They interview Austin Jackson and talk about how he gave bone marrow to his sister, which is great and all this. But like, I would have just liked to have just seen the football players. Like, I mean, God forbid you watch the draft and you actually get to see what the football players did. I mean, a lot of the people here who are watching the NFL draft are not as big college football people. They don't know all the stuff that happened. They don't know all these guys. And it was kind of crazy because you could watch long stretches of the draft, to your point, and you would know more about their family life than you would know about their football career.
It needed
And
to be balanced better. Okay, I
100%.
I have an appreciation for it. You know, it's life. Everyone's endured tragedy. Everyone's persevered and overcome things. And I commend what these players are doing, especially to lose a parent at a young age or a family member, and you make it to the NFL. You get to the highest level of professional football. It's a hell of an accomplishment, but it should have been balanced better. Plain and simple.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's get to the actual draft itself. Jason, I want you to pick one winner and one loser for the NFL draft.
Clear winner for me are the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, the fact that they were drafting late, they didn't really have too many needs, but they cashed in on some really good value picks. Getting Patrick Queen, the end of the first round, could be their inside linebacker of the future to replace CJ Mosley. Getting J.K. Dobbins in round 2, getting another receiver, I think, in round 4. They got an abundance of riches and they got stronger. And that's one of the teams that like really had no holes, and they did a great job filling those holes. I thought it was cool that I think it's Acosta and Harbaugh, and they live like behind each other. So they were social distancing, but they were still able to talk strategy. I thought the Ravens were head and shoulders one of the best teams in this draft. They got so much better. I'll leave the Packers for you. I'm going to go with the Bears since this is a very Chicago-esque episode of Baseline Jumper. But they're doing themselves no favors. They overpaid for Jimmy Graham, and then they drafted a tight end in the second round. Made no sense to me, some of the moves that they made. And it feels like they reached on a couple of players. So that's my one winner and my loser. What about you?
So for me, there was a clear winner for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, I thought that a bunch of their picks, they just got guys who were really above. I think CeeDee Lamb was a steal, obviously. Trevon Diggs in the second round was a steal. And then even their third round pick out of Oklahoma, Neville Gallimore, most of the people seem to like where he was at. The other team that I thought did really well that I just want to give a quick shout out for because I feel like everyone's saying the Cowboys. I feel like the Cardinals had a really nice draft. I joked to you, I mean, not just because Cliff Kingsbury seems to live in a mansion, but Isaiah Simmons slipping all the way down to them at 8 was amazing. Josh Jones, I thought was a guy I thought that the Dolphins might get with the 18th pick, and he slipped all the way to the third round. I mean, that was crazy. I honestly couldn't believe that he slipped that far. So I thought that was heck of a pick. I mean, the value that they got in those 2 picks, I think, were just tremendous. Like, I think they're going to have 2, potential Pro Bowl type guys that they got with those 2 picks, which I think is huge. And for the Cowboys, kind of the same thing. For the loser, yeah, I mean, the Packers are the obvious one. But I'm going to go a little off and say I thought the Chargers had maybe the worst draft of all. I really did not like what they did. I mean, I'm going to say I think everyone kind of knows the Packers piece. I think a lot of people have already harped on the Love pick, and even the guy out of BC who, obviously I'm a fan, but I'm not sure I like that. I mean, the Chargers, you trade up to get Kenneth Murray, who's an inside linebacker that's just not great positional value, and you trade up, meaning you're losing on that. They end up with no third-round pick. Felt like some of the other picks they made ended up being reaches. They go for a running back. I just felt like they really – I could see them only getting really one quality starter out of all this with Kenneth Murray, and I don't know that the first-round pick they spent on him is worth it, even if he is a solid starter. Like, he'll need to be one of the best linebackers in the league to justify his draft position. So I think that's tough. So I'd call them kind of a loser. Anything else that kind of jumped out at you from the draft?
I wasn't expecting Herbert to go top 10. I thought the thing is, this is why mock drafts become so relevant because they're never spot on, right? Like Andrew Thomas being the first tackle off the board when everyone was talking about Becton and Willis and Wirfs,
yeah.
And they end up going after him. So Thomas goes 4, and then I think the Jaguars took a DB, so that left another tackle there for the Jets. I mean, you were surprised when Tua was there for the Dolphins at 5 after you said last week you weren't too sure. And I ended last episode with a Tua chant, and I'm glad that I didn't look silly. So that worked out well for the Dolphins. I thought the Jets had a great first-round pick, good old overall draft. I think they reached a little bit for Morgan, the FIU quarterback, in round 4, even though Jake Fromm was still on the board. Taking a punter in the 6th, I mean, this kid better be like the next Shane Leckler. He did win the Ray Guy Award a couple years ago, so it'll be nice for the Jets to have a competent punter since they punt a lot. But I thought all their other picks were good. The Ashton Davis pick, everyone's worried because he plays the same position as Jamal Adams. No, he's a versatile defensive back, and I think Greg Williams will utilize him. They took another flyer on a Florida edge rusher. Hopefully he's not Ja'Kai Polite and won't make it out of training camp. I like the LaMichael Perrine pick. I think he'll be a good complementary back to Le'Veon Bell. Overall, I think Joe Douglas had a great draft. Hopefully Denzel Mims, who was one of the last prime receivers taken, pans out and could be a number 1 for Sam Darnold. I've seen comparisons to A.J. Green, Chris Godwin. I pray to God one of those comes true. Overall, fun draft. I thought some teams really stood up above the rest. And, great job.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the Dolphins go, I overall I like their draft. I just felt that they took some guys too high. I think, though, the Tua pick kind of makes it all worthwhile. In terms of value, I think he was probably the second most valuable player in the draft. If he was healthy, possibly the most valuable to get that guy at 5. Potential. I mean, I don't want to go overboard here, but I think if he stays healthy, he's like a Hall of Fame level type quarterback talent. That's where he's at. So to get that guy at 5 without having to trade up is huge. The picks that they made in the first round, other than him, they got young guys who could develop. The guy who people should probably watch out for, who a lot of people have said could be one of the steals of the draft, is Curtis Weaver, who they drafted in the 5th round out of Boise State. And there are some people who thought that this could be one of the, maybe outside of Chase Young, the best edge rusher in the whole draft. And he fell all the way to the 5th round. So that could be a major steal. And, the Jets decided to go punter in the 6th round. So, they were trying to get worst draft pick of the night. The Dolphins said, hold my beer, and drafted a long snapper with their 6th round pick in Blake Ferguson. So, Jason, I think we might have you beat this time because the long snapper might be an even worse one than the punter, I think.
I thought the whole AFC East did well, especially the Husky that drafted for Bill when Bill went to the bathroom.
Yeah, that was delightful. And his name is Nike, by the way, and he's a delight.
Well, his name was Gronk, and now with the trade, he had to rename his dog. What a shame!
It's a tragedy. And so kind of with that, I feel like there isn't a lot else that's really going on. There's really no sports around us, although as you mentioned, hopefully we'll have some NBA back soon. Is there anything else that you had that you wanted to talk about today?
Well, I had some Ben's Bulls Bliss on the horizon, but since you just erased it from the show notes, I'm a little taken aback.
I mean,